Hello, Goldie. It's good to see you. It's been too long. A virtual hug from me to you.
I got your virtual hug. I'm so happy to see you again.
Yes. Well, thank you for coming together with me. It is Mental Health Awareness Month, and you are so amazing on this space. I just want people to understand how much you give of yourself and your heart and your foundation and so much of what you do. And you and I met when you actually started at Pacoima Elementary in my neighborhood where I grew up, where I came to that elementary school for your Mind Up program. And it literally brought me to tears to see little kids in elementary school talking about the frontal cortex and the amygdala and how they can control their emotions. Right. So with that, can you tell us a little bit about how you came about with Mind Up and why you do the beautiful things that you do for our children?
Well, thanks, Tony. I mean, I started my, first of all, I've always been, curious about the mind, right? We watch behavior, we're actors, and you look at people's behavior. But also I went through my own period, right, where I was doing a lot of research on myself. I went to analysis because I was extremely, I guess you call anxious when I started rising to fame. Lots of things were happening that I didn't understand. So I really started looking into my own psyche, okay? But doing that, I learned a lot about the psyche, right? Then I started to understand what it was in 1972. I started to meditate. And that was because it was like cool. And also I thought, I want to see what happens to my mind when I do. And when I did that, right, during that time, I remember distinctly what happened to me. I was going through some anxiety and some issues, which, we don't need to get into, but I just cannot explain the joy, the feeling that I had when I got quiet and I went into my own heart. And suddenly I sort of revisited me and just this beautiful, quiet place, right? So I started understanding a little bit more about the brain and what quieting the mind does and all this. This was back then. And then, of course, my career, and I did all these things using a lot of these tools throughout in order to deal with a lot of the stressors, right, that come. And then it was 9/11. And 9/11, I had a calling, basically. And that was our children were going to suffer something what they call silent distress. Because silent distress is when children are looking at, oh, they seem fine, but they have symptomatic behavior. And then I started looking at the symptomatic behavior then. And even as 9/11 happened, this was even before, there was a rise in anxiety, child suicide, depression. Now they're being put on psychotropic pills. Now they have other issues in terms of they can't focus or concentrate. Now, I'm not saying that pills or all this stuff are bad. I'm just saying that there are other ways. And so what I did is I created this program. I produced it. I didn't write it. I brought in psychologists, positive psychologists. I brought in neuroscientists. I brought in teachers. I brought in parents. And I brought in practitioners, people who were sort of in the more meditative world. And also, researchers who understood the connection between quieting your mind and your neurological activity, right? So I thought, look, this is something that's been proven. It's sitting in petri dishes in universities. And I don't know why we're not giving our children an understanding of the brain. It's right here. They come to school with it. They go home with it. They are asked to work it, right, in their educated process. And they don't know a darn thing about it. And I thought, this is crazy. So I started with brain. That's why we brought in the neuroscientists and the educators and so forth. Brought in brain. Know your brain. Few pieces of your brain that have to do with your emotional system and the executive function, which is the prefrontal cortex. And there's only like 3 areas that we talk about. Well, we started in kindergarten and we've gone to 8th grade. And the reason I wanted young minds is because this is where we start molding the developing brain and giving them these tools, right, of knowing their brain, knowing what they have to do. We do brain breaks in the classroom because the brain break quiets the mind. The amygdala is going boop, 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 boop. And then suddenly they know how to breathe, focus. We're not meditation. We call it a brain break. Because we're not long meditating on this stuff, but what we're doing is showing them that in order to do that, to breathe into it, they can actually activate their prefrontal cortex and make better decisions and be able to think differently. So this is, we have acts of kindness, we have gratitude journals, we have savoring happiness, we have being mindful of your senses, of our tasting and our hearing and our smelling. And all of these things are meant to activate parts of our brain, which means that we want to grow a strong, healthy, fit brain. So now the children are practicing these things, and all the research that we did, because before I went out, I did a ton of research. And I did it because, I've been known as an actress, I'm known as a comedian, I've been known as a producer and all those things. But nobody knows me as an educator. Nobody knew me as someone who had some bright idea that was, you can put it in schools. So I made sure it was completely researched. So the research is what really was exciting, because our kids could make themselves happier. They work better in the classroom. They literally had less anger. They were able to have more compassion for each other. They worked better together in the classroom. And they actually did better in math and reading. And we did cortisol testing with them, and they were able to manage their cortisol levels. And cortisol levels, as we know, can be a good thing, but if you can't regulate it, it can become a bad thing for your health, right? Stress and understanding what that can do, which we talk about. So I put it out there. And then years and years and years and years later, after we had probably all over the world, probably trained over several million children, right? I met you. Because one of the reasons is that, when you're in your own hometown, like I grew up in Washington, D.C., I don't know if I went to the Treasury building. I don't think I ever went to the White House. I don't think I ever, you kind of don't see all the things in your own. And I thought, I want my own backyard. We have to be in my own backyard, not just the UK and Serbia and Canada, and yes, all over the US, but in our hometown, Los Angeles. So I wanted to go to Pacoima. And there were a few reasons for that. One is that it was a needy area, and we want to help these children be able to thrive in life. But the other one is that Kurt lived there for a while.
That's right. Yes. Yes.
And Kurt lived there, and Bobby was there, and there were some people there but when I met you, I met a soulmate. And I met a soulmate because we both felt the same way. We both felt that a child that isn't educated properly didn't get a fair shake. A child that has emotions and they come to school, they don't know how to handle them. They're not getting what they need of the tools to be able to one day manage to transcend some of the obstacles that we are all going to face, right? So the other thing is that when we give someone the children as we do, they actually understand empathy. And empathy is something that actually I don't think any culture can live without. But what's happening today, as we know, we're fighting that battle because there's very little empathy. We're just so separated. This is separating this. You are that. I am this. There is no sense of unity, togetherness. I mean, Republican, Democrat, religion, Jewish, Catholic, Hispanic, Chinese. What are we doing? So right now in our classroom, we are dealing with all of those things. We are a one world. There's no doubt about it. Just go over here and you're going to find Mexicans. You go over here, you're going to find Indians. You go over here, you're going to find, all kinds of different Moroccan and the thing. And, everybody's different. So my point is that you and I met, and it was just the most beautiful meeting for me, because frankly, you can either go bottom up or top down. And in this thing, which is education, you have to do both. And you were top because you're the representative, because you will go to the Capitol, which is one day I would like to be able to speak to not just the House of Representatives, but the Senate. And I would like an argument. You'll be standing next to me. Tim Ryan will stand next to me. Why aren't we teaching brain? Why aren't we looking in the classroom and mandating some of these very important things that our children may not know calculus? They may not become the greatest writers of the world, but we want the great citizens of the world. That's what we want. We want good people who know how to manage things, who know how to think straight, that don't have a bundle of unresolved issues and anger that they will take out on each other and their communities and their families. So I think that you got that. And I thought, yes, yes. So we went into your school. We did a lot of schools in Pacoima back, I
Yes.
don't know, several years ago.
And I brought together educators, teachers, principals, et cetera. And then when they heard about it, they got excited about it. And you went from one school in Pacoima. In my district in the Northeast Valley, there's a handful of schools.
Right.
I just want to say, Goldie, Pacoima is the kind of neighborhood when a kid does something, just kids do things, right? They get angry, they have their best friend, they get into an argument with them, they get labeled as a troublemaker. And when I went to Pacoima Elementary, which is right across the street from the projects, right? The tough part of town, I saw little children who were literally taking care of each other with kindness, with love, with respect, and understanding why they get angry, understanding how to catch themselves when they get angry, and then get into a mindful moment and take those deep breaths and not end up pushing their friend, but end up putting their arm around them and saying, I'm sorry. I mean, Goldie, how many little children in elementary school have been given the tools to do that? Almost none. And you're doing it. And that's why when I met you, I'd seen you on TV for a long time, but when I met you, we met about this issue and about our children and about how much pain they're going through and how much needless pain they go through when we don't help them with things that we can help them with.
That's right.
And the one thing I want to point out to everybody is that a lot of people see actors and actresses when they really put their mind to something and they really are actively making a difference. And I just want to let everybody know who's listening, Goldie Hawn isn't pretending to be a neuroscientist. She hired neuroscientists to do what they do, psychologists, psychiatrists, to create Mind Up. So this isn't something that Goldie Hawn thought of in her living room and says, yes, the tears came rolling down her face when she saw 9/11 and said, oh my gosh, what is this going to do to the children? And so what you did is you pulled together these amazing people and came up with Mind Up. And then I saw it right there in Pacoima where kids get labeled as troublemakers. And those kids are now putting their arm around each other when otherwise they might push each other. That to me was something that to me can change the world. And you're not just doing it at Pacoima. I know you're doing it around the world. I know you're doing it around the country. And I just want to let people know that is the kind of effort that we all should applaud and get behind. And then this month is Mental Health Awareness Month. It's just an opportunity for us to say, you know what? There's some beautiful things going on out there. And you are part of that, Goldie. That's why I wanted to make sure that you and I had this dialogue right now. And look, it literally brought me to tears to see kids that otherwise would be labeled as troublemakers. And I want to say this. One of the kids who answered all of my questions, the teacher didn't answer my questions. I asked them questions in the classroom. And then when we were done, the teacher told me that was the little boy that teachers would say, I do not want that little boy in my classroom.
Oh my God.
You get what I'm saying? You know what I mean. Why? Because his temper got the best of him sometimes. They labeled him as a troublemaker. But luckily that teacher said, I want him in my class because she took mindfulness, your Mind Up program, so serious that he ended up becoming the star of his classroom, not the troublemaker, right? Not the one that they call the cops on, but the one that they call to help other children to calm down and to get, to be in a good place.
Well, there's something that brought tears to my eyes too, by the way, because that's just proof that we can help our children. They are not done. The brain is malleable. We are developing this brain right now. We each have a part of that, a part of responsibility to be able to give our children the right kind of exposure to the right things, right, and train them. But what I love is that what people ask me, and I think we should talk about it. We had teachers were trained. So how it works is that teachers are trained in Mind Up. Well, since now we've had our next more than 9/11 problem here with COVID, our organization actually pivoted. We are now, as of May 24th, going to be completely online, which means that teachers can take it, schools can get it. It's a comprehensive, interactive, digital training portal. It is a platform. We have all kinds of speakers on it, people that will share things with them, whether it's on happiness, well-being, understanding, and all of our teachers are sharing how they teach and train. And it's just beautiful. I mean, it doesn't feel like a teacher's training, you know what I mean? Where I made sure when I designed it, that it felt a lot like what Mind Up is, okay? So it's quite an experience. And I'm so thrilled that we will be able to give this to anyone in the world and taking it. And we're going to have translations in Spanish. We're going to have translations, you know, in Chinese, in Cantonese. I mean, we have it in Serbian, Portuguese. I mean, it's really quite something. So, you know, as this horrible thing happened to all of us, that has created actually more stress, more unhappiness, and we're trying to reel ourselves back from what the brain is still looking at the negative. We have to start now teaching the brain to, every time you think of a negative thought, try to think of 3 positive ones. You know, catch yourself. 3 positive thoughts, 3 aspects of gratitude, and you will eventually begin to default to a better state of mind. It's up to us. So I think this is a really great thing. And Tony, I don't know if we've talked about that. Did we share that? That we're doing online?
No, we haven't. We haven't. You and I were chatting before we put the camera on. I got lost in the conversation. Go ahead.
Exactly. So anyway, but we, you know, this is what's happening, and you can ask for like a Zoom training as well. So we can do, you know, also in person, but you know, it's so much easier now because now we're going to be able to have the lessons, everything they need to know, questions answered, and you'll get your certificate and you will be a Mind Up facilitator. So it's pretty cool. And also we've got our Spanish translation. So I'm so excited.
Yes, and one of the things I want to point out, and I know we're getting short on time.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to point, I grew up in a household where my parents were from Mexico. They raised 11 of us in Pacoima. They did an amazing, amazing job, kept us out of trouble. We all, you know, we went to high school and to college, and our parents never had those opportunities where they grew up. But at the same time, you know, in some cultures, when somebody says, hey, I need some help, I'm having an issue, a mental health issue, in some cultures, it's still kind of like a taboo. We don't talk about that. We don't admit that. And to me, what I saw in what you did with those little children in Pacoima, where 9 out of 10 of them are Latino children, I saw that they were taking that home, and the teachers were giving us feedback that the parents were asking what it's about, and they were very accepting of it. And so it's really wonderful to see a little elementary school child be the ambassador, not only for their community, but for their own families. Right. I have a friend who he's one of those influencers, really nice guy. He grew up in a neighboring neighborhood in my district. We became neighbors, and he just admitted to me, he says, you know what, Tony, I didn't know growing up that I had mental health issues. I knew I had issues, but I didn't know what they were. I just thought there was something wrong with me. Mm-hmm. And he admitted to me that a friend of his got him, because he has 10 million followers. He's almost 10 million followers now. And he said, I decided that I'm going to do something online to talk about how I grew up and I didn't realize I had mental health issues, and it's okay to admit it. Exactly. Oh my gosh. And he's Latino. He grew up in a rough neighborhood. He had, he's going to admit this. I'm not going to mention his name because he hasn't done it yet, but he's going to admit that there was a lot of violence going on in his own house. You get what I'm saying? And that affected him. And the thing is, he just thought there was something wrong with him because he didn't feel right. And the thing is, for him to do that, Goldie, is just so beautiful and so wonderful. And he's determined to do it this month in Mental Health Awareness Month. So I'm just mentioning to you that you're breaking barriers, Goldie. You're helping communities where it's kind of taboo to talk about, you know, maybe I have a problem, or do I really have a mental health issue? How do I get help? Every time we help people get rid of those ideas that it's wrong, there's nothing wrong with it. And every time we can do that, we are saving lives, literally saving lives. You touched on it, Goldie. Since this pandemic, suicides among every age group has gone up, right? Suicide attempts, people who are feeling cooped up, they don't know how to handle it, etc. So these kinds of things, like what I'm so blessed to have learned, and my wife Norma has taught me a lot of this about taking a deep breath once in a while, right? Catching yourself, those kinds of things. And
Right.
and the more we can help people do that, the better we're all going to be.
I think so too. You know, the thing is that, you know, taking the deep breath is very important to to restabilize, if you will, or stabilize your mind, right? And there's a reason for it. Breath is something, yes, we breathe, but when you actively breathe and you do that, it lights up certain aspects of your brain. So it's actually a neurological sort of medication, right? It's sort of a medicine, okay? On the other hand, being able to recognize that you might have a problem mentally, that something may not be right. This is something that by just becoming aware of it, you are one of millions. This is nothing new. There's no taboo. If you feel like you're crying or you're upset or you're angry or you're showing more anger than you should or whatever, there are people that can help you. You are not alone. And this is the one thing. I was very depressed when I was becoming successful. I couldn't go out in public without vomiting. I was going through a terrible time. Yes, that was a mental problem, a serious problem. Probably my doctor, had it been a different time, would have said maybe you need to go on medication, but there was no medication then. So the point is, I worked through it. I went to a psychologist. I talked to somebody. I was very fair. I didn't hide it. I was very clear about it. You know, I was accepting, I am going to get through this, right? And I did. And I did it with help. And I wasn't ashamed because I wanted to feel better. I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to understand what was going on with me. And I learned, right? Sometimes you just have to admit it. And God, then is the beginning of your healing. And I think that's a really important, I'm so happy you brought that up, Joni. It's so important to not be shy. Nothing's wrong with you. Some
Yes.
people break an arm. Some people have stomach problems. Some people have foot problems. You name it. Some people have mental problems. Our brain is an organ. Sometimes you go kaplooey. You can get back on track, but you have to want to, and you have to work toward it, and you will succeed. So this is, and we need help. So
Sure.
please, you know, ask for
Look,
help.
Goldie, that's such a beautiful thing for you to share how you felt at that time, and the fact that you were fortunate that you realized that you needed to get help. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. And one of the things that many communities say that, well, if you admit it, you're weak. No, you're not weak. It takes so much strength to say, I need help, right? And the beautiful thing about it is when people say, I need help, you know what happens, Goldie? You get help.
Yeah,
You get help. There's so many people who love us. There's so many people out there with answers. There's so many people who want to help. But if we don't say, can you help me? They don't realize that that's somebody that they can help.
That's right. And one thing to remember is that we're only human. And that's something, we're vulnerable. We're all vulnerable.
And
So
the fact that we're human makes us complicated.
it makes us complicated, exactly.
Automatically. Look, I know you and Kurt, you never get into an argument and everything is perfect every moment, right? I know that with my wife, Norma, no, every moment is not perfect. None of us are perfect because we're complicated, right? We're complicated. But if we know how to get ourselves back on track, and then there's something simple that I saw in those children at Pacoima Elementary School, is the fact that they were speaking so compassionately about each other and how much they care about each other, et cetera. When you take that breath, instead of saying something in anger, the fact that you're calmed down, instead of saying something angry, you're probably going to say, I'm sorry.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
I am sorry are three of the most beautiful words in the world. But when you're mad, it's hard to say I'm sorry, right? But when you get control of yourself, and sometimes by taking a deep breath, by taking a break, a mind break, as the children are taught, all of a sudden you think clearly. And when you're thinking clearly, I do believe, Goldie, that when we are at our best, love and caring are what we're about.
I know.
And when we're angry, it's hard for us to be loving and caring. And that's what I say. In the last minute of this, I want you to close, and I just want you to just know this, Goldie, you are making our children one child at a time, one school at a time, one community at a time better, not only for themselves, but for their families and their communities. And by default, you're making the world a better place. And you mentioned something earlier. I'm going to make sure, I'm making this commitment to you in front of everybody. I'm going to make sure that you are in front of many of us members of Congress. You're in front of many of us members of the United States Senate, so that you can explain to us, so that we understand better how we can do our job better, because we can make sure that Mental Health Awareness Month isn't the only time that we make sure that people understand that they can get help, that it's okay to say, I need help. So I'm going to make that commitment to you. I've introduced you already to a few of my colleagues, and Tim Ryan, who you knew before you and I met, who is just such a wonderful colleague. He's from Ohio, I'm from California, but we're brothers. So with that, just give us some parting words about this Mental Health Awareness Month.
Thank you, Tony. It is my pleasure to be here with you and share this with you. And I hope that whoever is seeing us talk amongst each other and sharing some of these ideas is that, yes, anything that we can do as a human, and that we actually are looking and we're bearing witness to someone who might need help, please be their advocate. We should all be each other's advocate. Why in the world would we not help in any way we can? Have our brethren, our friend, our aunt, our whoever is in our life, live a better life by you being a friend and someone there for them to help them through the hard times. And there are always going to be hard times. It's how we go through them that actually defines who we are. And that's what we learn when we start looking into who we are. So I celebrate each and every one of us and all the potentiality that we have. And one day I hope to come back to Pacoima and visit some of our schools, and hopefully we'll do more there, but now it's online, so I'm very excited about that. God bless you. Tony, you're an angel. I hope you never go away. I want you to wear that Capitol hat forever. We need hearts and minds like that today more than ever, just like yours. Thank you. Thank you so much. With much love and respect. Good to see you. Hope to see you in person someday soon. Me and take care. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing with us. You bet. Appreciate it.